Something look different? I'm decided that if I'm gonna be stuck here, I might as well make it more my own. I'm not entirely sure where here is, but at least it's not the punishment room. I can wear normal shirts now, and I got my jacket back. I gotta be honest though, after being gifted my memories about 91 days ago, things aren't adding up. I know who I was before and where I was before, I just don't really know how I got here. Also, I'm completely alone now. I haven't seen another face in well, 91 days. Andrew, what does any of this mean? This all seems very boring and not important to what I'm about to talk about at all, but I promise it is. There's this new technique I figured out a little while back, but I wasn't quite sure how it worked when I first cut my hair, but now I think I have a good understanding of it. As far as I know, this could be very wrong. There's a guy out there somewhere, very similar to me, that is having all these memories of current year, and I'm able to tap into those memories and, you know, borrow them for content. And I didn't even notice I've been doing this, but I realized I have memories from 2022, and I've been here, wherever here is, the whole time. So let's talk about 2022. June has been a busy month, both with moving and other legacy content, so I've decided to push my original June essay back to July to give myself a little slack. 2022 has, all things considered, been both a pretty shit and pretty great year so far. I've been dealing with a lot of personal and medical stuff that really sucks, but on the other hand, there's a lot more of you here to watch me suffer. And don't think I don't see the comments, because I do. And a lot of them really inspire me. Except for all the ones that keep saying, I'm J-Schlatt. Can I not just be my own man? My New Year's resolution this year, yes, I did have one, was to engage in more popular things, even though I may not like them. Ever since I became an edgy preteen, so when I became a preteen, I've had this idea that if something was popular, it means I would not like it. Last year, near the tail end of the year, all my roommates were all together in the living room bonding, watching Squid Game together, while I sat in my room by myself with my arms crossed thinking, yeah, it's probably overhyped. And I was kinda right, but that's not the important part. The important part is I missed out because I was being too snooty. Sometimes it's just fun to watch a show that everyone else is watching, even if it isn't great. And with the return of weekly releases with new streaming services, it makes it a lot more fun. I wish I had this idea for the half-year catch-up last year, because there's so many new things I watched for the first time last year that I would love to be talking about. Unfortunately, the point of this video is to be easygoing, and that would have made the video over an hour. I'm saying this at the beginning of the video, before filming it, so it's still possible it will be over an hour. I keep writing 80 pages, and then refusing to cut any of it out. If this video exceeds 30 minutes, I'm gonna hurl. And while there's a lot of older stuff I watched for the first time this year, Daredevil, Ted Lasso, Mythic Quest, I think I should stick to the stuff that came out this year. There's a couple shows I did not mention just then: Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, Craig of the Creek, and The Boys. 3 of these shows aren't new to this year, but they did have new seasons that came out this year, and one of the shows is a sequel that takes place right after another show. Obviously, I'm talking about The Boys and Craig of the Creek. So I will be talking about those shows and some others, mostly the new seasons. I can't tell you how relieved I am to be done with Star Wars after the previous video. I'm a clean slate. What are we watching first? I did not think I was going to like this show when it was announced, and I was right. I think it's pretty cool that Ewan McGregor gets to come back and reprise his role from the prequel films. That's something I will talk about later. But I don't think we need to do it with every prequel actor. At least Ewan McGregor has been in good movies since the prequels. Name me one Tamura Morrison joint you've watched after Attack of the Clones. I know they had him in The Mandalorian, so it's too late to recast him now, but I'm sorry, he is not very good. He's not a good enough actor to carry the entire series on his back, and because it's a famous actor's face, they have Boba Fett take off the helmet all the time. A lot of Marvel movies have this problem too, where a lot of people saw the movie because of the top billing actor, so they have them in their disguise, their costume, but they constantly take it off during the action because you need to see the actor's face. This is why I think movies like Deadpool, despite its other flaws, have a lot of love for the character, because it's not Ryan Reynolds, it's just Deadpool. When it comes to poor blocking, it is almost always the director's fault, but with the action sucking in this show, I think it might be the lead's fault. I think they're trying to work around Morrison, unfortunately. I'm not gonna stand here and shit on someone's weight when I eat pizza rolls and chicken patties all day, but this could have been easily avoided if they just recast him. As opposed to most people, I actually really like the middle 2 episodes that have nothing to do with Boba Fett, because at least it's like a nice content break from whatever the fuck's going on in Jabba's palace. Do I wish they wouldn't use the creepy Robert Zemeckis CG Luke flesh puppet with the AI TikTok voice? Well, yeah. Kathleen Kennedy came out recently that she was scared of recasting Star Wars characters and pretty much threw Aiden Eisenreich under the bus. Solo is not a good movie, but it's not his fault. He did like a fantastic job. So right now they are petrified of recasting Luke, even though the corpse they have walking around is so much worse. I like the Gamorrean guards. I always have. Funky little pigmen, I say. This show was bad, but not in a fun bad way most Star Wars is. It was just boring and terribly edited. I'm actually going to avoid talking about this at length because I have an update video planned in a couple months. It's an update for the Adult Swim 20th anniversary video I did of like, oh, the future of Adult Swim. I will say that the show is hilarious and spectacular. I wish there was more of it, but that's not really a note or a critique, it's just me wanting more. That being said, I do wish they would have held off on airing them all in one night and just would have done them weekly like planned. I think it would have helped the discussion of the show, even though each episode definitely stands on their own. They did technically air it weekly, but they shadow dropped all the episodes in the premiere night. I mean, they made Halloween and Christmas specials and they aired all at the same time. I don't like having to wait long, but you could have spaced them out a little more. I know they wanted all of the episodes to release on HBO Max at the same time. I don't know what I'm saying. There's some stuff I really wish I liked, and the new series of Doctor Who I'm really bummed I don't like. I really tried though. I watched all of the Flux and I watched all the specials this year, and it's still so boring. I think they might just be too long. An hour of unbroken content is too much, and it doesn't help that the pacing is really bad. None of this is Jodie Whittaker's fault. It's Chris Chibnall's fault. Play the community clip, please. I gotta have one community clip per video. It's my quota.
Wait, was there a female inspector?
Yes, and everyone hates her. Not because they're sexist, because she sucks.
I'm excited about the 60th anniversary. I'm really excited about Russell T Davies coming back. I don't know how I feel about the idea of David Tennant coming back as a different Doctor. It's cool if he wants to do a crossover. I'm down for a crossover, but let the new guy do it. He seems funny from what I've seen. John Cena is great. I've been saying it for years. For a very, very, very long time, the DCEU has been in shambles because they tried to have the exact same setup as Marvel. When what everyone misses about the Marvel movies is they just made a couple pretty good movies and then did a crossover later. DC and Sony forgot the making the good movies part. Yes, the rumors are true. I will be talking about Morbius later. But in recent years, DC has basically just been letting their directors do whatever they want. For the most part. The studio kind of really screwed up the Harley movie by demanding more characters, but that's a different story for a different time. What came out of this was the Suicide Squad movie, which I will keep referring to as the Suicide Squad, because that's the title of the movie. I didn't write it. And the movie was very good, but more importantly, it was very James Gunn. Not that the Guardians of the Galaxy films aren't also very James Gunn, but you could tell the Suicide Squad is his unfiltered vision. And while working on that movie, he fell in love with John Cena as an actor, and it's hard to disagree with him. Peacemaker takes a while to pick up steam as far as the ensemble goes. Surprisingly, despite being named Peacemaker, it's an ensemble show, but the titular Peacemaker is always good. Peacemaker is consistently entertaining. Even the other episodes where the other guys aren't really resonating, Big Muscle Guy is, and also Vigilante. Love that little freak. Right from the start, you see what kind of show this is going to be from the theme song. What a masterstroke. I hold shows and movies in a much higher caliber if they surprised me with quality. Like if I was going to see a movie that I thought was going to be good, and it was good, I would be like, good. But for a show I thought was doomed from the start because there's no way they could make the main character interesting, is fantastic because the main character is interesting. Great. I was kind of hoping this new Gunverse would be its own thing, but now, in retrospect, it is very funny that they fumbled the bag with Cavill and Affleck. Okay, let's get the two hottest members of our new team with movies coming out soon. So they got The Flash as Ezra Miller, who's currently out playing just like real-life GTA, and Aquaman from hit movie Aquaman 2, starring beloved actress Amber Heard. If you want to know my opinion of The Trial, since that also happened this year, Too bad. It's a very complex issue, and it's weird to be like, oh, I'm rooting for this guy. Like, it's possible they both suck. I did like the ending. I like that they're leaving it open to a sequel series, despite the fact that the series in general was a very spur-of-the-moment decision. I'm glad people are starting to recognize John Cena as not only a funny guy, but a good actor. Did you know that he used to hate being in movies? But the movie that revitalized his love for the medium was Fred. I'm serious. He said that. Do you really want to taste it?
Like an operation appeared in the kitchen.
I hate when they title movies like this because I have to call it Scream 2022 and it's Scream 5 or 8. I have no clue. A lot of people get very riled up about Scream because it means a lot to them. I'm not here to shit on the first Scream. I think the first Scream is great. It's great because it's not only a good horror movie, but it's also a self-aware parody of one. Where this new movie tries to show reverence and nostalgia for the original while trying very hard to prove that it's smarter. Like, characters in this movie are constantly like, oh, there's always a twist. It's probably two people. Hey, it's always the boyfriend. You should watch out for your boyfriend, wink. And then they bring back all the alive characters. Maybe they did this with all the movies, but I only saw the first and hopefully the last one. Needless to say, watching David Arquette and Courtney Cox play awkward divorcees when they are actually divorced in real life, awkward to watch. Weird experience. My point being, even if you're a Scream fan, you're not gonna like this movie. It's not a good sequel, or whatever they call the fifth movie in a series. The fifth movie.
I'm going down to South Park, gonna have myself time.
The newest season of South Park is a really mixed bag. It is nice to get back to more down-to-earth, simple South Park stories after the last couple movies were about elections, the pandemic, and vaccines. A lot of people who don't watch South Park think it is just social commentary and constant parody and satire, but really the best episode this season was the one where Cartman became a realtor out of spite for his mom. That being said, and maybe I'm reading into this wrong, there's an episode about Pajama Day, and it seems like a very heavy-handed allegory for masks, but not in like a relatable, oh, we all have to wear masks, isn't this wacky kind of way. It's more of a, wearing masks is fucking stupid, I shouldn't have to do this kind of way, which is concerning. And South Park has always made fun of everyone, but this seems irresponsible. Sorry to get political, guys. My stance is I don't want to die. My current stance is whoever I am trolling. Maybe I'm reading too far into it. Maybe I'm the one giving a dumb argument. Regardless, weird feeling. But like I said, this season is a mixed bag. I don't think any of these episodes are going to become classics, but some are good. And some are bad. I mean, that is what a mixed bag means. The last couple of seasons, the South Park team has been trying to make serialized stories, and it hasn't always worked. But I think these multi-hour movie stories are the way to go about it. And plus, it helps with burnout. It's a lot more creatively fulfilling to put all your work into one big project instead of a bunch of little ones. Completely unrelated, hey, welcome to Boys Hub Ultra. I do video essays now. And new seasons work too if you want to do small stories. What I'm worried about is doing both. South Park has signed a deal with HBO Max for making new seasons and Paramount Plus for making new movies. Both at the same time. That's probably too much South Park. Even if it's all quality and the writers are all quality writers, this can't be good for them mentally. This doesn't really have anything to do with the season I watched. It's just a general fear for the future of the franchise and the show. Moving on. Kid Cosmic Season 3 is the third, and final season of Kid Cosmic. Time sure does fly. At first I thought it was just me, because time has been moving very fast for me recently, and not worth looking into. But upon looking at the release schedules for the seasons, Season 1 was released early 2021, Season 2 was released mid-2021, and Season 3 was released very early 2022. That is 12 months to digest 3 seasons of episodes, all dropped at the same time. I normally don't like waiting unless there's an active hype cycle, but I noticed this problem a lot with Season 3. Season 1 feels like the perfect front-to-end story. I never once felt that it went too long or it was missing something. Same thing with Season 2. Even though it's 2 less episodes, it still feels like a complete story. Season 3 only has 6 episodes compared to Season 1's 10. I thought this was a normal case of Netflix being Netflix, but I think this was purposefully chosen. And the structure isn't flawed. You can still tell a good story in 6 half hours. The problem is the season whips around rapidly. The conceit of this season's plot, which is set up in the finale of season 2, is resolved in like episode 3, and they reveal that they didn't beat the antagonist of season 2 halfway through season 3, so they need to go back and do that. So it's the same thing. A character dies, and then they don't, and then they kind of do, and it really sucks any weight out of the event. The first season is very focused on Kid, the second season is more focused on Joe, and it seems like the third season is going to be focused on Rosa, but then they just drop it. I knew going into this that this was going to be their final season, so it's a real bummer that it feels kind of rushed, because now I just want more stories from this. But this isn't a BoJack situation where they got canceled before they planned to. This is the vision the characters had, assumedly. The vision just doesn't work. Alright, we've been talking about too many shows. I am a bitter little piece of shit gremlin man who refuses to enjoy anything on surface level, and I need to critique and editorialize and study everything very deeply. I have never in my life described something as a feel-good movie, so first time for everything. Jackass Forever is the feel-good movie of the year. I take comedy and comedians very seriously. I've studied, that makes it sound so dumb, what makes jokes work and what makes jokes funny. Jackass Forever is an anomaly. Everyone will love this movie. I didn't feel bad once during the whole thing. I'm not really emotionally invested in these modern nostalgia movies they've been making, but Jackass Forever takes me back. That being said, I am a fan of the other Jackass movies. I don't know any of the members by name. Well, I don't know most of them by name. I obviously know Johnny, he's an icon, Steve-O, Wee Man, Big Man. If you are a diehard Jackass fan that's been watching ever since its inception, it may be kind of hard to look over the absences. But the rest of the team did a great job boosting up the new members. I don't think I've ever seen a torch passed better. I was ecstatic to see Jasper. I probably watched more Loiter Squad than I have Jackass, and same excitement for when Tyler showed up. Also, Eric Andre. Jackass the show was a little before my time, but I did follow all the comedians that were heavily inspired by them. This is the greatest Adult Swim film that has nothing to do with Adult Swim since, I don't know, Looney Tunes Back in Action. What a weird choice. Watch it. You won't be able to stop smiling while watching it. Do a try not to laugh challenge or whatever. I don't care. You won't win. I'm not really sure how to describe a movie that's just fine. Like, it's not terrible as much as it is derivative. I think the point is that it's supposed to be a huge homage to like Indiana Jones, Da Vinci Code. Is that the right film? Mission Impossible, The Mummy, all that stuff. But there is not a single scene in this movie that I have not seen somewhere else before. Some movies just have a bad premise, and the premise has been like talked to death for months before the movie comes out. And then when the movie comes out, that's all you can really talk about, and it's like already been done to death because like, okay, it's already flawed, the premise is flawed. It's hard to talk about this movie without talking about the elephant in the room. The problem everyone has with this movie is the casting, but we found that out like a year ago, so we've already gone through the stages of grief, and now we're just like, don't care. I'm not an Uncharted fan, so maybe I would hate the movies more if I had played the games, but in its current state, it's fine. Fine. Like, I didn't hate it, but I can't say I liked it. I do know a little bit, and the justification I heard is that, oh, Tom Holland's playing young Nathan Drake, which does appear in one of the games. So I went into this movie thinking, oh, this is like an origin story about young Nathan Drake played by Tom Holland. And then the movie opens with young Nathan Drake played by not Tom Holland. Like, there's a kid version that plays the kid version of Tom Holland, who's the adult. This is just a vanity project for Tom to play a character from one of his favorite games, and you know what? I'm happy for him. I don't care about Uncharted or the legacy of Spider-Man, so Tom Holland outliving his boyhood dream, good for him. There with some of the best Pixar movies, legitimately. It's a shame Pixar is only focusing on sequels and movies with already existing IP when they have such this well of infinite creative ideas. I don't know how else to describe it aside from saying it feels like an early 2000s Disney Channel original movie, but not in a bad way. Just because of the soundtrack and the way people talk, very rarely do we get retro movies set in the 2000s, even though it was 20 years ago. And I'm not here to argue that you can't like something for your own reasons. If there's a reason you don't like this film, that's fine. but the people who are saying they don't like this because it's pushing sexual stuff on children are projecting. I know it's a huge rampant issue, but not everything is pedophile propaganda. Some stuff is just good. This seems really dumb, but I do think the reason a lot of boomers and hardcore conservatives are mad about pushing sexual stuff on kids is because we call being gay a sexuality, where if we called it like, oh, strombosis, they wouldn't really care. It's just like in the name. Is this making any sense? I'm trying to do my best to avoid spoilers with everything I talk about, just like surface level. I will say, something happened at the end of this movie that caught me off guard, not in a good way. I'm going to explain this as vague as possible so the people who watch the movie know what I'm talking about without spoiling it. There is this thing that the members of the family all have, and they're teaching this young girl, like, hey, you should be ashamed of this. And her story in the movie is like, no, I don't need to be ashamed. We should all be proud of this cool thing we have. And it's like, oh, that's a cool lesson. And she keeps it in the end, but none of the other family members keep it, which seems counterintuitive to the lesson the movie is trying to go through. Like, the other family members are like, yeah, you should be proud of this. I'm gonna get rid of mine, though. I don't want it. She teaches the rest of the family this important lesson, but then they just don't keep it. I don't know, it's weird. It's the one thing I don't like. Oh, that and Osama bin Laden should have been in the movie. I don't mean to repeat myself, but he said it best when he said, but in recent years, DC has basically just been letting their directors do whatever they want for the most part. The Batman is a 3-hour movie that I loved. And mind you, I hate 3-hour movies. I firmly believe that if you are a writer that wrote like a 3-hour movie and you can't cut it down, you're not a good writer. I say, as I am looking at my 80 pages, a couple hours into recording this. But for the Batman, and I did only see it the one time, I can't really think of any scenes that I could cut out. And granted, I did only watch it once in the theater's front row looking up in IMAX. They all looked very tall, but I don't remember ever being bored. Even the scenes that aren't literally tied into the story do tie into the mystery of the characters later. I will say that is one thing that they could have done better. I do really like the mystery and watching Batman solve the mystery, but we don't really get a suspect list. It's not like Scooby-Doo where they show like 5 characters. It's like, oh, which one's it gonna be? It's just like a guy we don't meet till later. Paul Dano gives a fantastic performance. So does Robert Pattinson, for that matter. I know this isn't a comic accurate depiction of Bruce Wayne, but it makes way more sense. What kind of person who lost his parents when he was a kid, is still not over it, refuses to go out in public and dresses like a bat to fight crime? Is it cool billionaire playboy, or is it emo boy who's really weird and wears eyeliner? The second one. Like, I believe this Bruce Wayne could be a Batman way more than billionaire playboy. This kid is a freak. This is the first film I watched this year that had a very strong cinematic language. Like, you could tell this is Matt Reeves' vision. I don't normally like dark movies. I don't mean tonally dark. I mean just literally like you can't see anything. I know this movie is based on The Long Halloween, and I think it's set partially on Halloween. And because of that, we get really beautiful colors, a mixture of black and very strong, vibrant orange in the background. I don't know how else to describe the cinematography, aside from saying it's beautiful. You know, for a video where I'm going in depth about everything I watched and how, you know, carefully I'm talking about each thing, I sure am saying I don't know how to describe a lot. I like that the Riddler is just like a 4chan loser. People said this movie didn't have enough jokes, but the funniest thing was when they said, he has over 300 followers. I audibly laughed in the theater. And like, it makes sense. This is what a mentally disturbed person would do. This is where they would go. They would talk into a mic in front of a... Let's move on. I love his performance, and I love the soundtrack, and I'm glad both are getting the internet recognition that they both deserve. Finally, I can wear my Nirvana shirt in public without the fear of people asking me if I know any of their songs. I now know one of their songs. And as far as good music goes, I'm not just talking about something in the way. The main theme also goes hard. The internet will do this thing where they ship characters together and then claim that's what the movie is doing. The reason I liked Turning Red so much is because the previous Pixar movie, Luca, was boring and uninspired, and I got queerbaited by the internet. But surprisingly, the internet has a good point here. Not that they're dating, but that they're both a couple choices away from being the same person. There are 2 peas in a pod. I love when Batman villains are just kind of a reflection of the Bat himself. I put the mirror here, and when I said Bat himself, I brought it to... I guess I think I'm Batman. I'm glad girls and gays alike are thirsting over Paul Dano instead of Robert Pattinson, because he deserves it, and Robert Pattinson deserves to be left alone. I hope there's a sequel. Speaking of gay people... gays really like this show, but I thought it was going to be a light allegory that everyone could relate to, because that's what I'm used to now. But no, this show is overt, and it's awesome. I stood up out of my seat and pointed at the screen like I was watching the new Space Jam at every comedian I recognized. We were on vacation when I was watching it, and I was talking about how much I loved Will Arnett, and then an important character shows up who's like an asshole, and I'm like, that guy sounds like Will Arnett, and then it showed him up close, and I'm like, that guy looks like Will Arnett, and then it was daylight, and I stood up and like soy-faced and pointed, and I was like, that's Will Arnett! Tim Heidecker, my favorite comedian, shows up in the show, and he's just like a guy. It's awesome. After watching the first couple episodes, I thought Blackbeard was going to be the show's overarching villain. I'm so glad I didn't know anything about this show. Like I talked about during Smiling Friends, I don't want to frame my wants as complaints, and as of now, they got greenlit for a second season, so all my wants aren't really critiques, it's just stuff I wish would, that they still could fix. In the second half of the series, we get a lot of time dedicated to Blackbeard and his crew, and I understand why, but our crew kind of gets sidelined. There's still a lot we don't know about our band of misfits from the first season, and I like seeing Steed and Blackbeard interact. I got distracted, I was thinking about it. I'm really trying not to spoil the show, because you should watch it. There's a point near the end where Steed, the main character, the captain, leaves, and it's a big moment, and then he decides to come back for someone very specific. And it's really sweet, but it kind of irked me that it was just because of that one character. Like, I understand why he wants to leave his family, but it's a lot harder of a pill to swallow for him to leave his crew, and it's framed as a wholly good thing. He abandons them, and it's not really mentioned. I don't dislike what makes Steed happy. I just wish the crew was a part of that, because I like the whole found family dynamic. That being said, I think what makes Steed happy is very important to the show. But it looks like we're about to get more of that in Season 2. By the way, Season 1 ended. It got renewed. Happy Pride Month. I really wanted to like Jellystone. I like everyone involved. And honestly, the stuff I did retain, I liked. It just struggled to keep my attention. I just think that comedy shows are terrible for binging. I talked about it a little bit ago, that if short episodes are released all at once, it's a lot harder to have each of them stand out. But this show doesn't have the luxury of being as funny, iconic, or important as Smiling Friends, so it doesn't latch onto you. If this show released weekly on Cartoon Network, or hell, even HBO Max itself, I'm sure I would like it more. But in its current state, I watched the entire season in a day. I have no impulse control. I immediately forget all of it. I don't know if that's really the show's fault, though. Maybe someday I'll change my mind, I'll come back and watch the whole thing and be like, this is the greatest show ever, why did nobody watch it? When it's pretty much my fault. The Marvel shows have been really hit or miss while also being the only Marvel thing keeping me invested. Of course I saw Spider-Man and my roommates wanted to watch Shang-Chi and there was nothing else on, but you could not pay me to go see Black Widow or worse, Eternals. But Doctor Strange tied into WandaVision, so I had to watch that. Also, if you haven't noticed, I'm trying to watch everything this year. WandaVision when it started was a nice change of pace, but reverted to business as usual at the end. Loki was the best one because it was so different. What I'm saying is that these shows are good Marvel shows, whereas I think Moon Knight is the first show I could show to someone who doesn't like Marvel, and they would probably enjoy it. It's just a good show, no strings attached. Well, maybe some strings. For a very short 6-episode season, it sure is inconsistent. I was trying to point with my hand, but I held up 5 instead. That's not how many episodes there are. The first 2 episodes are a great introduction to the world and the mystery. The last 2 episodes are both heartbreaking and heartwarming and raise the stakes of the mystery that much more. The middle 2 episodes, you don't have to watch. I watched it with some of my roommates who hadn't seen the middle episodes, so while I was showing the show to them, I just skipped those 2 and said, oh, they went to the pyramids, he got shot, he woke up in a mental hospital, okay, episode 5. And it's a shame because the bread of this sandwich is great, like some of the best bread I've ever seen, but the meat stinks.
Have sex, excel, put my hands against, put my best against, put my 10 a 10, put my spend a spend, have sex.
Yes, I did watch Morbius in the movie theaters the first time around, and it was the second worst thing I've seen this year. Stick around for the first. I'm sure you've heard a lot about Morbius this year, so I won't really beat a dead horse, but I will say the meme is hilarious. I don't understand why there's so many people upset, like, oh no guys, they're gonna make more Morbius, this is awful, as if that's not the joke itself. What is funnier than everyone being like, oh, it's Morbin time, and then Sony makes a bunch more Morbius films that also flop, or do good, ironically. I think that's hilarious. I don't know why everyone's so down in the dumps about it. Like, we can't enjoy something ironically. We can't have a purposefully bad movie series. It's not purposefully bad, but we all, it's a bad movie. So now, from this point forward, I will only be saying nice things about the 2022 film Morbius. I like Matt Smith as like a person, personally. Amphibia Season 3 was split into two halves. The mid-season break happened at the end of 2021 and then came back 2022. I really liked all the episodes, but in hindsight, after watching the finale, a lot of them don't matter. And like, if you want to argue that it's just trying to do fun episodic stories, that's fine. They don't need to be all building up to a big thing. But this is the final season, and it's set in unfamiliar land, and each character they meet seems like they're going to be important. Much like a frog itself, the show jumps around a lot. God, that's such a good line. The season starts with them returning to the human world, and then halfway through the season, they return back to Amphibia, and then the finale, they return to the human world again, and then return to Amphibia again. It's fine, it just utilizes a lot of its time introducing a lot of new human characters that I thought would tie into the finale, but really don't. The season is made up of basically just building an army. Every episode is they meet a new person or someone they knew previously and be like, hey, we're building an army. They're gonna help us later, and that's what the episode is. Not saying it's bad, but that's what they are. But all the human characters do in the finale is stand around. Steven Universe had this problem too, where it had a lot of human character episodes, and those aren't bad. It's just that it never tied into the actual plot as much as if it should have. I don't talk a lot about Steven Universe, but there was a period of time where I was very heart set on my theory. I'm like, oh, Sadie's gonna join the team for sure. They're focusing so much development on Sadie. She's gotta join the team. And then they forget that she exists. And I'm torn because Amphibia has always had much better human characters. My one friend tried watching it and didn't really like it that much. And I'm like, well, how far did you get? He's like, halfway through season 1. And I'm like, once you get to the end of season 1, that's when it starts to get good. The human characters, I think, are the best part. And yet the new humans, while interesting, don't get to do anything. That being said, I did really like the finale. I like how the show builds up one of the antagonists. Do I not like how some other antagonists were built up? Yeah, but I think that's mostly my fault for watching like fan films or just fan art, like build up the hype for me. It's a shame it's over because I only last year, I think, got into it. And I seem to be getting into stuff very late. Everything seems to be ending cartoon-wise. Well, at least I have. Similar to Amphibia Season 3, Owl House Season 2 was split into two halves and came back around the same time. But dissimilar to Amphibia, I loved all these new episodes. I've always been more of an Owl House guy myself anyway. I said this before too, so I'm gonna be repeating myself a lot. It's one thing to be good when I expect it to be good. It's another thing to be good when I already had it in my head like, oh, this is gonna be bad. I'm not saying that the Owl House isn't good. There was just a character that I hated. They introduced this new kid guy, and you could tell from a mile away that he was going to get redeemed, and the fandom was like, oh, Cinnamon Roll, he's so cute, forgive him, and seeing all that just, like, made me annoyed. So I hardened my heart and crossed my arms and scoffed like a cartoon reviewer, and I was like, there's no way I'm gonna like this guy. And then he did get redeemed, and he's one of my favorite characters in the show now. You see, this is how you make entertaining episodes while also making all of them count. I'm making it seem like I didn't like Amphibia. I did really like Amphibia, just there's that one thing. A lot of people were upset the show was canceled, and I use the quotation marks because it's still getting a third season, kind of. I mean, they had less time to do it, and this season had a lot of work to do as far as lifting and introducing characters, but they managed to do all of it. I think I like all the new characters. I don't mind the movie format, and I get that they probably wanted to tell more stories, but 3 seasons is average for a Disney animated show. It's not like it's being, like, short-staffed. Us as a society, we're a little obsessed with having as many seasons and as many episodes and never letting anything end. Whereas, as far as animation goes, some of the greatest animated shows of all time, like Gravity Falls and Over the Garden Wall, only went for 2 and 1 seasons. The 1 season has like 10 episodes. Of course, it's different because Over the Garden Wall was planned to have 10 episodes, very succinct. We know the story we're going to tell. Whereas Owl House probably thought they were going to get more, and now they're like bummed that they can't get as many. But I still think you should be able to tell that story in the allotted time. I suppose we won't know what we missed out on until years down the line. We still don't really fully know what we missed with Steven Universe or BoJack. That being said, I dick ride at Disney a lot and been like, oh, it only needs 3 seasons. Is it possible that they short-staffed and shortened the show because it has prominent gay characters? Probably. This show is not good. I don't think you need to watch a whole show to know if it's good or bad or not, but whenever I want to give up on a show, something in the back of my head is always like, oh, but what about BoJack? BoJack Horseman is the reason IGN changed its reviewing of Netflix shows. They used to review the first half of the series, but then they gave BoJack a really low score, and everyone's like, no, the show gets good, so they changed it. Because, you know what, I'll say it, the first couple episodes of BoJack, if not most of the first season, not very good. And showing the show to people is such a slag because you need to get past the boring bits. Even if it was strictly comedy, the first episodes just, like, aren't funny. They're like bad family. I gotta move on from this. My point is, I forced myself to continue to watch Halo on Paramount Plus, thinking it would get better, and then it didn't. Maybe it's because I don't care about the Halo lore, but I've heard Halo fans don't like this either. I mean, they made novels about it, so I'm sure there's enough to get a series in there somewhere. And yet, they decided to make The Mandalorian without the heart and where all the action scenes are terrible. Just learn choreography. The show costs so much money to make. Just pay a choreographer and get like half a day and be like, hey, move like this. It's not that hard. I know I'm speaking from like no experience, but choreography is not that hard. I don't want to talk about Halo anymore. Just don't ever say I don't do stuff for you guys, because I watched all of Halo Season 1, and I gotta say, I'm excited for Season 2. Can't wait to review that when that comes. You could easily just watch the Jellystone part of the review again, but I feel like this has more to be said. I understand that animation is a lengthy process and it needs to be viable for streaming, but I feel like Close Enough isn't given enough episodes to really find its footing. The episodes in Season 3 that I watched, which is all of them, are actually funny, and I do actually remember them because I watched them with a group of my roommates and had to pace myself. The amount of Close Enough we have gotten in 3 years is now equal to the amount of regular show we got in 1. I keep talking like as an authority on animation, and I know it's such a huge problem. I don't want to rush or overwork anyone, but it feels, by watching the show, it feels like they have a lot more stories they want to tell, but they aren't given enough episodes to do so. Because of HBO Max or TBS or whatever, only orders a certain amount of episodes. They can only make that. It's not like they're like, oh, we made an extra one, check this out. They have to make that amount. I will say on the upside, you know that your show is good when my only note is, make more, please. Also, a clip from Season 3 about Marvel movies and movie theaters and blah, 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 blew up on Twitter. People got really mad about it. It was very funny. Moving on. The iCarly reboot has been a very strange experiment. Normally I try and avoid nostalgia reboots of old sitcoms because they are normally very sad. Oh, like why aren't the Olsen twins in the Full House reboot? Because they actually went on to do stuff after the show. Also, they like hate acting, and I don't blame them. Why isn't Zac Efron at the High School Musical reunion? You know why. So I was skeptical of the iCarly reboot. I just thought it was a bunch of people who want to be actors forced to do something like, oh, do the one thing. But then I found out Miranda Cosgrove and pretty much everyone else are producers on the show. It's one thing to come back to a show that made you famous because you need money. It's another thing to go back to a show where you legitimately believe there's stories there yet to tell. I won't lie to you. From what I watched of the first season, it's pretty rough. I understood why they did this. It was to bridge the gap between shows. But a modern sitcom releasing in 2021 having a laugh track is strange. Like, I remember these sounds. They're the same stock sounds you use. I know there's not a studio audience, so why do it? See, the point of the studio audience is to kind of persuade you to laugh. It's human nature to, when you hear someone else laughing, even if it's not that funny, you want to laugh. It's why I liked Game Grumps for so long. Let it go, man. Leave them alone. But my laughing experience was different. It's like you go to a family function and like your uncle is going through a really bad divorce, so he keeps doing like really bad jokes. And nobody really finds them funny, but you all need to like awkwardly clap and smile because you know if you don't, you're gonna see a grown man cry. It was like that. I didn't find it funny, but I felt bad that I didn't find it funny. However, Season 2 had the first episode I thought was legitimately funny, like I laughed, no strings attached. Season 2, Episode 3, I'm Wild and Crazy, is a good episode of television. No buts nor excepts, just a good episode. If you don't have Paramount Plus, I wouldn't recommend buying Paramount Plus to watch this episode. You should watch the Halo show instead. But if you're like over at someone's house and they have it, and they're like, hey, do you want to watch this? You're like, hey, watch this episode. Yeah, go out on a whim for me, and if your friends hate it, That's your fault. It's convenient that all the Paramount Plus stuff was lumped in together. I'm gonna jump on this ahead of time. I know I said I would review everything this year. I didn't watch The Fairly Odder. I was like, oh, that's the one thing I won't watch. And because of that, it's the one thing every other internet reviewer watched and talked about, so I completely missed the boat. I really want to jump on trends because I think it's fun, but these videos take too long to make. By the time I get there, it's like, nobody's watching the show. What's wrong with you? This season got some more nostalgia, but it's all in favor of the plot, so I liked it. The episode where they return to the groovy smoothie and turn it into a modern, flashy restaurant is a kind of meta-contextual storytelling of the actual state of iCarly itself, or it's just for a goof. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. That'll be the next video. I'm going to write an essay about that. Hold on. I get why Noah Monk doesn't want to come back, and I definitely get why Jeanette McCurdy doesn't want to come back. But you couldn't get Tebow? Did you not? I'm sure he would love to come back. He's pretty much a main character. By the end of the original show, he becomes like a main character. Oh, his letter got lost in the mail? A lot to change it, so we're kind of have to deal with the cards we're dealt. This movie was legitimately funny at parts. I don't think it was that bad. It was fine. I just fear for the franchise's future. Why did they skip over Amy? That sucks, dude. I'm mad. Shockingly, this is the worst thing I've seen this year. Worse than Morbius, worse than Halo. It is bad. The only enjoyment I got was when I saw this with my roommates and they showed Hogwarts on screen and I did the soy jack and I opened really widely and pointed and I said, oh, that's from Harry Potter! I actually liked the first Fantastic Beasts movie. I think it's a very fun standalone film, but because of the film's success, now it is a franchise. It's important to the series and it doesn't make any sense. Why are Goofy Pokedex guy and his little round human sidekick meeting Dumbledore and tied up with this giant wizard conflict? What expertise could they possibly have over actual wizards? Can we all agree that the Harry Potter canon now is pretty fucked and bad? Like, if you like the movies, that's fine, but think about it a little bit more, you're like, wait a minute, what? The world is incredibly unfair and horrifying if you think about it. Also, they cut Johnny Depp out of the franchise and left Ezra Miller in while still fucking shit up. I'm not gonna talk about the trial, I just think this is very funny.
The old man always said, nothing's ever truly over, son. But sometimes you have to look it up on YouTube. Like the Aqua Teen Hunger Force shorts.
I'm gonna save this for the Adult Swim video. Just know, I'm pretty disappointed. Now, technically, as far as the rules we set go, I'm only supposed to talk about the first half of Season 6 of Better Call Saul. This year, 2022, I watched the entire franchise, Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. I have a lot to say. And my review is, it's good. I'm not here to be a contrarian. Could you believe it? Internet reviewer man thinks Breaking Bad is a good show. I could talk about it for hours, and maybe I will someday, but I'll say this for now. I avoided it for a long time, and I initially didn't think I was going to like it, because I thought it was going to be like a serious drama. But if that's the reason you're not watching the show, let me tell you, it's a lot more fun than that. Like, the first season has more in common with sitcoms than, like, a drama. If you were on the fence and you're like, I don't really like dramas, you're gonna love the show. Just watch it. And the cool thing is that it gets you invested in the fun parts and then steadily ramps up after that. It is a lot more fun than people online claim. Actually, now that there's like a huge meme culture around it, I guess it is as fun as you would think. It was really cool when Community and Seinfeld came to Netflix for the first time to watch everyone like posting about it and a bunch of new people in the fandom, I guess would be the word, experiencing it for the first time. I love when shows get rediscovered and everyone posts about it like it's a new thing. And this has been happening with Breaking Bad. I don't know why. Initially I thought it was because of the memes, but maybe the memes happened because everyone was rewatching it. I don't know. Netflix has been doing really bad this year, but still, for whatever reason, they have an insane amount of pull. This is not a lie. I watched American Psycho for the first time last year solely because of the memes. I'm serious. Never underestimate the marketability of memes. And the show is very popular with the trans community. I can't pinpoint why, but it is still cool. Moving on. Now the show I'm supposed to talk about. Better Call Saul caught me at a perfect time because after Breaking Bad, I was on a huge Bob Odenkirk kick. Bob Odenkirk kick. I watched his new show with David Cross, his old show with David Cross, realized he was in Community, Arrested Development, Tim and Eric, and I Think You Should Leave. All of which are paragons of weird shit I find hilarious and very important to me comedically and emotionally. He's all over the place, and honestly, the show would not work without him. Well, that's pretty obvious. Of course, Better Call Saul wouldn't work without the main character. But no, I mean, if I wasn't entirely interested, I would still watch weekly because I just wanted to see what weird shenanigans Bob was up to. If you don't care about the overarching story, you could still watch Saul doing his thing and it's fun. And that's mainly what season 6 is. Jimmy is full-on chicanery now, and it's great. Also, credit to the prequel that got me to care about characters that weren't in the original show. Mike's story is sad in retrospect, and it's really weird to be on Gus's side, but the new characters, Kim and Chuck, are really what kept the momentum churning because we don't know what's going to happen to them by the end of the series. I mean, we have theories, but it keeps you on your toes. I will say, aside from those two, I got really emotionally invested in the pack of old ladies, and there's a lot of terrible things that happen in this show and in Breaking Bad, but the most heartbreaking I've ever felt in either of those shows is there's something that happens between Jimmy and these old ladies, and I had to call my grandma afterwards. I don't care much for Nacho. It's probably because I got ADHD brain and I had the show on in the background while I was working on other stuff. And the show, whenever he's talking with like the important family, it's in Spanish and they use subtitles. This is not, I'm not criticizing that. I'm not like, oh, it should be an American. It's just my fault for listening to them speak Spanish and then 30 minutes later realize, oh, I don't speak that language. I'm excited for the season to come back right after this video goes up. Kind of missed the boat. If I just waited another month, they would have been fine.
Yeah, we may be bad, but we're so good at it.
I don't know much about this film going into it other than how pretty it looked, and that's pretty much the main thing that stood out anyway. I mean, the story's a little generic and the acting is decent, but the animation is really what puts it over the top. I've been talking to normal people about me watching everything this year, and I realized, like, they said, like, oh, I've only watched, like, 5 shows or something. Most of the stuff I watch is animated. I don't know what to say about that. I just really like animation. And I just realized while reading this, I'm talking about it a lot. If Hollywood refuses to release new 2D animated movies, at least we get really good 3D looking ones that will eventually loop back around to basically being 2D. First, Hotel Transylvania with the Genndy Tartakovsky squash and stretch, and then the freaky little Peanuts movie. I like the way the industry is going. As far as movies go, at least. Really just look up any clip of this movie and you'll see what I mean. You'll also hear some of the best music in the background because not only is the animation fantastic, but the score is better. Ooh, that's a big... Is it better? I said it, it's public now. Listen to the soundtrack, watch the funny colors. I could honestly just like put the movie on, but with no dialogue and just listen to the music and just vibe out. Not the greatest movie I've seen this year. Definitely the best animated film? Speaking of the greatest movie I've seen this year. I had no idea what Everything Everywhere All at Once was going to be, other than the fact that it existed. I knew that it was an A24 film, I knew that people liked it, I did not know what to expect. So when I watched a fun sci-fi romp with an inventive multiverse and a strong emotional core, I thought, there's no way Doctor Strange is going to live up to this. This is the movie we saw a week before we saw the new Doctor Strange. I didn't know it was going to be a multiverse movie. But oh man, that's unfortunate. The editing, effects, and music are all off the wall, but the main characters keep it grounded. Everything that 100% needs to be explained is explained well. Not everything, but you don't need to be spoon-fed everything. That's the important part of a fish-out-of-water character. After seeing the opening scene, I did not think the mom was going to be the protagonist. It's interesting to see this kind of mother-daughter dynamic from the mother's perspective. We don't see that a lot. And we're not supposed to agree with her, but it's interesting to see why she feels the way she does. Yeah, this movie's about family, but not in like a Fast and Furious way. There's not much more I could say without giving it away, and I truly believe the best way to experience this film is going in completely blind. Everything Everywhere All at Once is the best film I have seen this year, absolutely no contest. Unfortunately, I can't tell you why. You're just gonna have to take my word on this one. I think you can get it on digital for like $20, but I definitely recommend seeing this in theaters if you can. And also the guy in this movie plays Short Round in the Indiana Jones movie. He is Indy's little small round Asian sidekick and somehow not the most racist thing in that movie. Right in between the multiverse movies, we got thrown the second season of Three Busy Debras. While everyone's focusing on smiling friends Pibby and Tuca and Birdie, Three Busy Debras came and swooped in and stole the show. With Tim Heidecker moving on from the network and infomercials wrapping up a while ago, we are really missing that live-action absurdism content on Adult Swim, and she fills it. They fill it. I'm thinking of Debra as one person. Also, Eric Andre has been MIA for a while, or maybe my sense of memory is wrong. Three Busy Debra... I was about to explain the plot, just like off the top of my head. That's pretty impossible, because the show is insane. It's hard enough to review something that's funny and being like, oh, this is funny. It's a lot harder to review something that's very absurd that I think is funny, and you may not find funny, and me to be like, oh, it's funny, I swear. For Christmas, I watched the Tim and Eric Christmas special with my roommates, and I was laughing, and they were not. I know I'm asking for a lot of trust in these last couple wins, but just take my word for it. It's funny, but I'm not here to review the show. I'm here to review Season 2 that came out this year. Season 2 of Three Busy Debras is not as good as the first one. Damn it. It's not as good, but it's still pretty good. That's my review, I guess. I know I feel like a hack right now for trying to rush through stuff, but there's so much more still to come, and this was supposed to be a short video to let me off the hook, and it is not. I loved Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, but I also watched WandaVision, and I mostly liked that. That's important context. Is this movie better than Everything Everywhere All at Once? No. But what it did do was entertain me and not pander nearly as much as I thought it was. I've heard complaints about this movie not having enough cameos, which is stupid. Could you tell how good I am at debating? You're wrong and dumb and stupid. What did you want? You wanted Deadpool to walk on screen and be like, hey guys, I'm Deadpool from the Deadpool movie franchise. I'm in the MCU now. What does that add to the movie? I'm going to talk about the Chip and Dale movie later, and you're surprisingly going to hear me talk about how much I liked the cameos in that movie, so I'm going to nip this in the bud now. I like the cameos in that movie because it's the only substance the movie has. I wouldn't have liked it without it. I wouldn't have liked it in this movie because it would have taken away from the plot. Credit to this movie, surprisingly, the Illuminati did not feel like a waste of time. Everything else I've talked about so far, I have avoided talking about spoilers, but you can't really do that with Doctor Strange, especially the stuff I'm going to talk about. It's a major Marvel movie that's been out for months now. You should have seen it. I'm going to keep going. If not, skip to the next thing. My final review of the movie, it's good, okay? Skip to the next thing if you don't want to get spoiled. I'm a real asshole, and I was getting real upset that everyone was just talking about the cameo potential of this movie, and I knew while watching it that when Xavier and Jim from The Office showed up that they would be ecstatic. And because of that, I absolutely love the scene where the Scarlet Witch comes in and meticulously and slowly murders all of them. Like I said, I am an asshole. I just think it's funny to imagine some dude going in there being like, oh, I can't wait to see how cool Mr. Fantastic is, and then being like upset when he gets murdered. I'm picturing that makes me smile. Which is why I don't think the Illuminati was a huge waste of time. It was important to show how powerful and evil Scarlet Witch was, and they needed her to kill major powerful characters, but without killing any actual characters. The MCU doesn't really like killing characters, and they're like, whoa, we need to show that she's stronger than Captain Marvel. How do we do that? Let's have her kill Captain Marvel, but it's like a different one. I liked how inventive the multiverse stuff was. I liked the cool horror stuff and the cheesy 2000 stuff. I was talking about this with someone, and they thought it was going to be more horror, and it's not really a horror movie as much as it is like spooky. Like it feels like Scooby-Doo skeleton dancing vibes. Like if they showed this on Halloween, I'd be like, yeah, but it's not a horror movie. I liked that I cared about the main characters. The joke example I would always use while trying to say that Marvel movies were pretty generic and similar was that there was a love interest in Doctor Strange, and she doesn't appear again to be like, oh, really, Doctor Strange needs a love interest? And they totally forget about her. If you told me before I saw this movie that I would not only care about Doctor Strange's love life, but be legitimately interested in the female lead from the first Doctor Strange movie, I would walk away awkwardly and probably not say anything, but fester on it for like a week after. I like where he ended. He doesn't need a Mrs. Strange. I like that he had to give up everything for the greater good and to acknowledge his own faults by looking inward. But they might pair him up with the random girl from the credits, so they might ruin everything. You do probably have to watch WandaVision before you watch this, but that's the only thing. You don't have to watch What If. You don't have to watch The Eternals. You definitely don't have to watch Inhumans. Sometimes you see movies on a whim. Sometimes you see a movie with your roommate every week and there's a lull period where you have to pick a random movie. So he sees a movie and he's like, hey, it's a Stephen King book. Those movies are never bad. And then you have to show him the truck stop one. I got glared at in the movie theater for laughing at this movie. They do the thing that most weird kid movies do, where the weird kid is bullied, but it's so cartoony I could not help myself. She also sets a cat on fire. This isn't funny the way I'm explaining it. You just had to be there. Yeah, go see this movie right now. Zac Efron was in it, and he was acting, I think. The titular Firestarter can start fires with her mind. In the climax of the movie, somebody lies to her, and she says, liar, liar, pants on fire, and then lights them on fire. And I think it's supposed to be cool. If it's supposed to be funny, then mission accomplished. I could explain to you why this movie didn't work and wasn't good. Or I could continue to describe scenes. I think the latter would be funnier.
When you need some help to save the day, they're never far away.
I've been tricked. I've been duped. I thought everyone was being sourpussies. When everyone was complaining about this movie, I thought it was another Space Jam Legacy situation. People hate this movie because something intellectual property, something capitalism. I love crossovers. I have my whole life. I don't care if they're a way for companies to flex their intellectual properties. If I see a thing I know, I point and I scream. I thought people were being unfair to this movie just because they hate crossovers now for some reason. But no, the movie's bad. I've heard John Mulaney be a voice actor before, so I know he can do it. So I'm confused as to why he decided to act this film like he just learned how to read. Andy Samberg is doing much better despite having less voice acting prowess. Also, the writing was really hokey and just not good. I love poking fun at weird 3D animation, and I love me some Tim Robinson making fun of Sonic. But that's it. I was gonna watch this anyway, good or bad, but I was way more excited because I know people online get mad about shit that doesn't matter. But no, I should have listened to everyone. It was not good. My review is go watch I Think You Should Leave starring Tim Robinson on Netflix.com.
Ass! Fuck!
It's impossible. I mean, why is it so hard?
You've heard all the praise for Top Gun Maverick by this point, so I'm here with a hot take to show you. No, sorry, it's good. It's a good movie. It's probably the second best film I've seen this year overall. Yep, I'm putting it above Batman and Doctor Strange. I'm gonna piss off as many people as possible. I'm gonna say this one more time. I promise I won't say it again. It is one thing to go into a movie and be like, it's gonna be good, and it is good. It's another thing to be like, probably not gonna be good, and it's great. Not only is it a great movie, I didn't expect it to be. My roommate I went to go see it with also said it was great, and I was ready to hate on it because I love a little bit of drama. But no, unfortunately, I love the movie. It is a nostalgic movie for a classic film that I have never seen, but I never once felt lost. Everything is explained through either dialogue or basic context clues, and I felt like I was a Top Gun fan, despite never seeing Top Gun. Every scene in this movie is important, nothing is wasted. People were excited about this film doing well, because like, oh, we get a big blockbuster finally that isn't a big brand, but I'm more excited the fact that we need more 2-hour blockbusters. I liked Batman, but goddamn, I wish it wasn't. Every character was important, and I felt for all of them. There wasn't a single new character that I didn't latch onto. I even liked the asshole guy, which I think is the point. I can go on and on about how good the acting, cinematography, and score are, but again, like I said, you don't expect it to be good, and it is. It's a lot more impressive. The fact that a Tom Cruise 80s nostalgia retro film has good writing is insane. I like to be surprised, and I cannot stress enough how not good I thought this movie was going to be, and how pleasantly surprised I was when it was really great.
Every day we come downstairs, unlock the door, and turn the sign to open.
It seems strange to be disappointed by a pretty good movie. Like, it's a good movie, what more did I want? The Bob's Burgers theatrical film was marketed as a musical adventure, so I thought it would be a musical. And by my musical episode requirements, it is, but this is a movie. Movie musicals should have a little bit more. It's pretty disappointing that we only get 3 songs and they're all in weird places. There's the opening song, like in every musical, that sets up all the characters' motivations, and then a follow-up song on one of the characters, and then the last one is a villain song that takes forever to get started. And I love villain songs, so this was such a huge wasted opportunity. I'm not gonna spoil who the villain is, but it's also someone I would like to see singing. I'm not a music reviewer, I'm not bald enough, but I do understand what makes musicals work. How this is supposed to work, from my experience, is we get an opening song to set up the I wants of all the characters, then each conflict gets its own follow-up song, then a villain song maybe, and then the final song that wraps it all up. We don't even get an ending song, we get like a Shrek dance party credits song, so the last person we hear sing is the villain. Even aside from some conflicts not having songs, a lot of the conflicts are kind of thrown to the wayside. No big spoilers, but Gene's conflict is set up in the opening song with everyone else's, and then he gets a dream sequence, and then we don't hear about it again. It's not resolved, it just kind of happens at the end. The reason this is so disappointing is because specifically Bob's Burgers has some really good songs. It even has its own musical episode. Maybe someday I will talk about it. And it's not a bad movie. It's actually a pretty great movie. It's just a really terrible musical, and I expected more from Bob's Burgers. Covering stuff that is actively coming out as I'm recording this and may not be finished by June. This show and Better Call Saul won't be over by June, but by June they will have released all the stuff they were going to. Both shows come back in July. I missed the boat perfectly, so hopefully this gets you excited. I used to think Stranger Things should have ended a long time ago. I thought the same thing of the MCU after Endgame. But absence makes the heart grow fonder, and the last time we got a new Stranger Things season was 3 years ago. That was long ago. Not long ago enough that we couldn't review it on the channel, but a lot has changed. Damn, I've been doing this for a long time now. But I've changed my mind. I really don't care if this show goes on forever, as long as there's a big gap in the middle. I hope season 8 or whatever has them in their 40s. I know they already said season 5 is going to be the last season, but I disagree. I think 3 years between each season is a good gap. It gives us enough time to start missing them. It also helped that this new season was way better than the previous one, because no matter how dumb or contrived the story gets, Stranger Things has this superhuman ability to make likable characters like a conveyor belt. Even the new ones are like iconic now. It's like Buffy. I didn't really talk about this, but after the musical episode video, I went back and watched the rest of the series to completion, and the final seasons got pretty bad, but by that point I was invested in all the characters, so I kept slugging through it because I like these guys. I want to see what stuff they're up to. I love all these characters. That being said, I hope some of them die. Our cast is getting too bloated, and the episode structure reveals that. How important is the adult plot, really? We cut away from the California boys an episode before the last, and then we don't see them again, and nobody cared, so they must have not been important. Hopper should have stayed dead. I'll say it. This isn't spoilers for the new season, the previous one. If you didn't, it's been 3 years. Hopper should die. I love the character, but that's what made the death so impactful. You can't just be like, nope, he's okay. It's also a huge disservice to Winona Ryder to just have her do the same shit again. Also, Mike should die. He doesn't serve the story anymore, and it doesn't look like Finn wants to be there anymore. I love Finn. He's living out my childhood dream, and I'll never forgive him for that. But I love his creative ventures. He's not doing a good job. It's way more noticeable when Millie is acting circles around him. He's not a bad actor. He's just clearly phoning it in, and honestly, I don't blame him. As much as I really love the new characters, they don't do a lot of new combinations to mix it up a little bit more. The most fun parts of the new season is seeing Robin and Nancy interact and seeing Lucas and his new basketball biker gang. And yet we have the same combinations as last time. Joyce, Hopper, and Murray are together, and the kids are with Steve. The only difference is that Mike is gone, and you know what? You don't miss him. And Will, but Will didn't add anything to the show anyway. For someone who had a lot of fun with this season and enjoyed watching it, I sure do have a lot of complaints. People shit on Marvel and Star Wars for an over-reliance on CG, and they should, but oh my god, somebody's gotta stop Stranger Things. How hard would it be, really, to just do makeup? There is an important scene that is practical effects, but it's like the only practical effects in the whole show. There's an important scene in the show, and if you watched it, you know what I'm talking about, where a character gets hit on the head with a blunt object and starts bleeding, but it's CG blood. You couldn't just fucking squirt some ketchup on her. She's gotta... Why? It's legitimately insane. It seems like it would be harder to do that. So yeah, I liked it. Those are my only notes. Less CG, kill more kids. I hope the finale's good, but I'm not holding my breath. If the finale is bad, I may need to change my review of the series in its whole. In its whole? Hold on, no. Well, I'm not retaking that. That's a good line. didn't think there would be more South Park in this half of the year, but right in the end, they dropped a new special on Paramount Plus on June 1st. And the only reason I do know about it is because YouTubers I like also made videos about it. I don't know if I didn't see any of the marketing or if they straight up just didn't bother with this one. South Park team is lucky I have Twitter and made a New Year's resolution to watch everything. This movie is a lot of fun, but I really thought it would be self-contained. I didn't think we would have a lot of crossover between the Paramount Plus South Park and the HBO Max South Park, but the Tolkien family and the Hot Dog House carry over from the previous season, which rewards people like me who have both streaming services because of connections. But it kind of sucks for everyone else that you need both. Like, you can't just jump into it and be like, oh, I love South Park, I'm gonna watch South Park. You need context. This movie ends on a cliffhanger, and I think it'll be followed up in the new HBO Max season, and that's very confusing. But funnily enough, that's what the movie is about. It's about stretching yourself too thin while making multiple deals with multiple streaming services. Lampshading. There's a character who's a stand-in for Amazon Prime, and whenever he gets his gang to attack people, he says boys, and it could be a reference to The Boys, or it could be nothing. The movie's pretty funny. They take a couple pot shots at trans kids, I think, which is both low-hanging fruit and also like a dick move. Just terrible timing, too. But the story is unfinished. I know the previous two movies were like one story split into two parts, but at least they both stood on their own. This one just kind of ends and leaves you wanting more, but not in a good way. I guess I went on my consensus until the story is concluded, but for right now, the story is unconcluded. With all the new shows on this list that I haven't watched before, I watched the entire show up until the new season coming out this year. Season 3 of The Orville is titled Orville: New Horizons. I tried to watch some of the first season of The Orville, and I didn't love it. I think it's like a love letter to Star Trek fans, which is something I'm not really into. I understand that Star Trek is good, I just can't get into it. What I can get into is Seth MacFarlane. I've gone to bat to defend Seth MacFarlane before, and I have no problem doing it again. A lot of people blame the fall of Family Guy on him when he hasn't been involved with the show for a long time. I think he's a pretty talented guy. He just bites off way more than he can chew, a lot. What I do know about him is that he loves sci-fi. The only reason I got into shows like Community and Seinfeld is because I was watching funny moment compilations or clips on YouTube, and that eventually like pushed me to actually watch the show. It's also how I got into South Park as a kid. And that kind of happened with this, but not for the show. I was just watching a lot of Seth MacFarlane interviews, and I'm like, oh yeah, I like this guy. What's he up to? And what he's up to is the Orville. I didn't love season 1, and while I would normally watch them in order, the fact that season 3 goes by a new title, I thought it would be a good time to jump in. And I was sort of right and sort of wrong. Season 3 starts off right after a tragic event at the end of season 2, which I did not see, but the events of the tragedy reverberate through the episodes I've seen so far. Full disclosure, the show is coming out weekly through June, so by the time I wrote this and I'm recording this and you're seeing this, I may not have finished the show. Tragic event that happens right before the story. A fun, kind of comedic sci-fi romp. Is this sounding familiar? It's Doctor Who. I'm describing Doctor Who. You would think that The Orville is more of a comedy, and it is more or less in season 1, but by the time season 3 comes around, it's more of a mystery drama. And despite not being full of jokes, I think it's the last thing that Norm Macdonald worked on. It's nice to hear his voice. So the important question, did I like what I watched? No, but I see the appeal. Will I watch more of The Orville after this? Again, probably not. I should probably watch Star Trek first. Now I know what it's like to not understand the Star Wars jargon I spit out all the time. Jurassic World Dominion was fine. I've been saying that way too. Sometimes stuff is just okay. I went to go see this movie. The movie happened. I walked out of the movie and immediately forgot what I just saw. I mean, as far as Jurassic World movies go, it's the best one. This is another nostalgic movie for a classic film I have not seen, but unlike Top Gun Maverick, it doesn't stand out much past that. I guess I could technically be nostalgic for the first Jurassic World. It came out in 2015 when I was 14, and now I'm an adult. And I'm horrified. For the final movie in a trilogy, and God, I hope this is the final movie, it lacks an interesting climax. Like, it was a fine movie, but it felt like you know those Indiana Jones books that aren't really canon? It felt like a little side adventure, aside from the big overarching story, and then it just kind of ends. This whole movie is like B-plot. I hate to use this word unironically, but the movie is not epic enough. Some movies have A plots and B plots happening concurrently. This movie felt like two separate movies happening and then being cut together in editing. They have little to no relevance to each other aside from the new guys meeting the old guys. By the way, and it's not any shock to anyone, Jeff Goldblum absolutely carries this movie. What I really hated about the first Jurassic World was its over-reliance on CG. There's that term again. Constant problem. The original film, Jurassic Park, still holds up today because it used a combination of animatronics, puppets, and computer-generated effects. So I was happily surprised to see in this movie that they used actual practical effects. I'm a real freak when it comes to animatronics and puppets. I can tell when it's real. And you probably can too. CG is supposed to look more realistic, but when a character is acting against something that isn't there, it's a lot more obvious, especially in this movie where they're constantly petting and touching, and it's like their hands are kind of floating there. A puppet would have looked more fake, but it would have made the actor act better. When something is physically there, it's a lot easier for actors to pretend something's there because it is there, as opposed to like a tennis ball on a stick and they're like, whoa, crikey, it's a dinosaur. Does he say crikey in the movie? My final review is this is the best Jurassic World movie, and by that I mean it was okay, I guess, a little below average. I wasn't excited about Kenobi per se, even though I feel like I should have been. I truly felt like I reinvigorated my love of the prequels era while doing the previous Star Wars video, but then in the rest of the month I spent editing that video, I made myself get sick of it. That being said, I did like most of it. I liked it for the most part. It was fun. It seems strange to say this because it feels so much like the prequels, which isn't this at all. The writing is so much better than the action. I liked all the writing bits. I like Kid Leia, I like Uncle Owen, I like Ben, I like Reva, I even like Darth. What I didn't like is that in the first couple episodes there are like 4 chase scenes and they're all terrible. Normally I would chalk this up to a blocking issue, but I think it's because of the volume. The volume is a gigantic screen that projects an image behind where they're recording to simulate a set that isn't actually there. That's the simplest I can describe it. Is it better than the blue screen they used to use? Yeah, it's better, but it's still not as good as a set. You can't tell me you don't have an Empire hallway set. I know you have a ton of it. It's just like filming at Disneyland. Just go to an actual desert. There's like a ton of them all over the place. It is a large screen, but it's still not as big as a vast landscape, so whenever there's a chase scene, which is a lot, the character has to run off screen and then run back on to the next screen and then run off of that screen, and the person chasing them also needs to do that. It's like an old Flintstones cartoon where the background keeps like, you know what I mean? It's weird. It seems like no one really cares about spoilers for the show because it just ended. Probably because the people who don't want to watch it aren't going to, and the people who do want to watch it already did. It's easy to watch stuff when it comes out in this format. I do like in the ending, or the final episode, how it's kind of implied that Leia is way more important to saving the galaxy, and Luke is just, like, there. I like that it retroactively changed the plot of A New Hope to Obi-Wan resorting to using Luke. Like, it wasn't his plan. He's like, oh, I gotta deal with the whiner now. And without giving too much of the final episode away, or any episodes really, it is a complete ending. There's speculation that a second season could be in the works. I don't want that. The series as a whole was not meant to be a show originally. I can guarantee you that. This was planned to be a movie. They were going to have a ton of spin-off movies, and then the Solo movie bombed, so they canceled it, and then they got a new streaming service, and The Mandalorian did pretty well, and a light bulb appeared above their head like, oh, let's make all the movies into shows. If you remember back in the day when they were in talks about the movie, there was going to be, the two big speculation was Boba Fett movie, Obi Wan movie. They are both shows that came out this year. I don't think they changed the script very much. Or at least I hope they did. I can't imagine watching the Boba Fett show as a movie, because it was boring. And I have spent this whole video, however long it is, talking about how much better I like the weekly format of shows. Oh, I love these shows. I love that these shows come out weekly. Hey, this movie might work better as a show. This show is good that it's a show. All of that being said, Obi-Wan probably would have worked better as a movie. Did I like the show? Yeah. If you just want to get final review, the show is good. Not as good as The Mandalorian, but the second best new Star Wars show so far, and there are going to be a lot more. We see a lot of fights repeated and constant action scenes, and I mentioned the chase scenes before, that don't go anywhere. And it's an action-adventure show, so because it's split into 6 episodes, every episode needs at least at least one state-mandated action scene. And by scene, I mean like most of the episode. And not all the action scenes or episodes are created equally. Maybe it would have worked better as a movie, but that speculation doesn't even matter because after, you know, some flops and stuff that didn't do as well as they would hoped, there's no way we're gonna get another Star Wars movie in a very long time. But we're getting Andor and an Ahsoka show. Alright, fine, I'll talk about it. Disney, the Walt Disney Company, refuses to make anything animated anymore, so much so that they got an animated character that originated from an animated show, a beloved animated show, and made it into a live-action woman in a live-action series on Disney Plus. My brain stopped working. Maybe they don't think animated things are like marketable, but then what's the point? You're Disney. I've come to terms with the fact that they don't want to do 2D animation anymore. I get it. They hate that for some reason. But Clone Wars was already 3D. What are some problems plaguing modern Star Wars? One, they keep casting actors who played characters that aren't very good because they played that character when they first appeared. You see, in the animated one, they could have just gotten a voice actor. Oh, how can we recast Luke? How can we get a guy that looks exactly like Luke? You don't have to. Just get a voice actor to do it. And their refusal to build sets or anything practical, if you're already gonna have a 3D animated background, just make an animated show. I feel like I'm losing my marbles about this. That being said, I do like this show's use of lighting. The volume seems distracting, but you could tell that the effects have really come a long way since the prequels, where they're just kind of like a light bar there. They have actual lightsabers now. There's a scene, without spoiling it, where a character's face is lit blue, and then as they slowly corrupt more and like their monologue goes on, it becomes more red, lit by the lightsabers. You could probably figure out who I'm talking about. It's cool that Ewan McGregor got to come back and show everyone that he's a good actor. It was very smart to limit the acting Hayden Christensen did because, you know. If Pixar is hell-bent on making sequels or continuing IP that already exists, I prefer them to do something like this that's more interesting. I talked about Uncharted earlier where everyone just cared about the casting. The problem most people have with this movie is the premise, but that's like my favorite part. Would I prefer them to make an original story? Yeah, but if they're gonna do this, this is basically an original story. I prefer Lightyear way over like having Toy Story 5. Are we on 5 now? And having like a Potato Head movie spinoff? I know they're making a Barbie movie. New personality dropped, Ryan Gosling. If Disney is going to force Pixar to return to the old favorites, it's cool that they at least get to make a new space movie that's barely related. Oh, before I said what most people are mad about, and I did mean that because I was referring to normal people, there's some not normal people who are pretty mad that 2 women kiss in this movie. Grow up. Saying this in the nicest way possible, society is going to leave you behind, you old fucking dinosaur, and nobody's going to care about you. Die. Okay, you don't need to go to bat to this movie and defend it. Disney does this thing where it puppeteers. What I was saying is that you don't need to go to bat for the movie. It's a pretty mid movie. Like, it's good, it's just not... Giving Disney more money isn't going to stop homophobes. But if you're not seeing the movie because of that, grow up, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Good movie. And now, as of June 30th, right now today, I have watched every major release in 2022 so far. Except for Euphoria and Barry. For someone who uses HBO Max more than any other streaming service, I sure don't watch the ones people are watching. I was just watching Clarence and infomercials again. There are, however, 2 shows I started and technically came out this half of 2021, but won't be over by the time I'm recording, writing, filming, and uploading this. It's not Better Call Saul and Stranger Things. Fuck! My relationship with the Amazon Prime Video original series The Boys is that me and my friends called ourselves The Boys, and then we named our YouTube channel The Boys, and then they released the trailer for the show, and I'm like, this is going to ruin search engine optimization, so I changed the name to Boys Hub, and then also changed that name later because it's also the name of an Indonesian gay porn site. So for so long, I held a grudge against The Boys and refused to watch it. I also have this idea in my head of what the show was. I'm so fed up of like this evil Superman trope because it's been done to death now with stuff like the Snyderverse, Watchmen, Brightburn. It's the same reason I didn't watch Invincible for so long. Also, Amazon Prime. You know, Amazon Prime has a monopoly on superhero parodies and garbage Chris Pratt movies. I thought it was just going to be edgy for edgy's sake, and the comic definitely is that. This is the first major comic thing where the community is all like, yeah, show's way better than the comic. But The Boys actually has something to say. It's something that's been said before, but it has something to say, and it has heart, and that's important. The heart of The Boys is the relationship amongst the boys. I wish I could talk more about the show in depth, and I really have a lot to say because I did just watch it. But only season 3 has been coming out this year, so and that's not over yet. So what I will say is, from the episodes so far, I am stressed. I keep up this like tough exterior of like, cringe, nothing gets through me, I don't feel emotion, but I do get emotionally attached to characters a lot. We're in the 3rd season, and the 3rd installment is always the darkest 3rd act. Not that the show is going to end soon. I think it's actually greenlit for a 4th season, but seems like The Boys are falling apart this season and everything's going terrible, and I cannot handle it. I mean, from like an emotional standpoint, I feel like I'm gonna be sick. From a storytelling standpoint, like if I was envisioning me writing this and making other people emotional about it, great, fantastic. I love it. Oh, but one quick gripe, and I've been sitting on this for a long time. Episode 5 of season 3, I'm gonna write this in my letter to Amazon amongst some other gripes. I thought it was going to be a musical episode. It wasn't. It was marketed as one. I saw all the clips on Twitter. Oh shit, a gritty show like The Boys is going to do a musical episode. This is going to be great. I've been tricked. I hate to admit when something isn't for me, because I never really liked that idea. The whole point of this exercise is to push me out of my comfort zone and watch things that I normally wouldn't. And it makes me feel even worse that the show is very heavily directed towards small girls and Muslim people. Because if I don't like it, if I don't resonate with it, what does that say about me? Am I like a shitty guy? It's cool that it celebrates the culture. It's not a culture I've ever interacted with, but it's cool. And as far as the aspect of it being for young girls is, I like how Disney Channel it feels. And I'm not just a dude, bro. Most of my life was spent at home growing up with my mom and my 2 sisters, and our favorite show to watch all together was Hannah Montana. Like, it's not like I was lumped into it. I enjoyed watching it. Our cat, my cat, is named after the character with the weird hair. And that's what Miss Marvel is. There's the quirky, nerdy childhood best friend who's clearly going to be the love interest in the end, but she doesn't see it. There's the popular girl. There's the embarrassing parents. There's the parties. There's the sneaking out. There's the double life. And I like the editing. I guess editing is what I would call it. It's very Lizzie McGuire. I know I'm comparing it to a lot of stuff, but just if you watch the show, you'll know what I mean. And for a show that isn't reaching a lot of people, it has probably the most intensive editing of any Marvel show. I said Moon Knight could stand on its own and be its own show outside of Marvel, but this show doesn't even feel like any other Marvel property. And that's probably why people aren't watching it, but that's what makes it stand out and I think makes it cool. It's visually interesting. There's a scene where it pans up to like neon lights and they become like heart emojis and it transfers into like texting. It's a lot cooler than I'm making it sound. You just kind of had to watch it. It's like Scott Pilgrim in that, except, no, it's exactly like Scott Pilgrim. Yeah, that'll make people mad. Say that, print that, that's good. I just don't like anyone on the show. That's not true. I love the dad. The dad is great. I'm sad that he didn't get to wear his Hulk outfit. Maybe the show will get better, but if it is 6 episodes, then it's already halfway done, and it hasn't gotten great yet. Maybe below Hawkeye. I might put it a little bit above Hawkeye. It's definitely better than Captain Marvel. Final review is they should have let her keep her big hands. I think that would have made, it would have sold 1 million copies. More $1 billion bucks. And that is every major show that released in 2022 reviewed. Except I started watching Craig of the Creek on an airplane because they had cable TV for some reason and nothing else was working, and there was a marathon on that day, and I'm like, sweet. After Adventure Time, Gumball, and CV Universe all ended, and all the stuff I was interested became HBO Max exclusives, and I don't have cable anymore, there's no real reason for me to keep up with the Cartoon Network shows. Which is unfortunate because it used to be my favorite network. It still probably is my favorite network, especially because all they air now is 2 reboots of kid shows I held in very high regard as a kid, but I'm not getting into that argument again. It is not 2015. After watching Owl House and falling in love with it for the first time, I veered more towards the XD shows. I watched Big City Greens, DuckTales, Amphibia. I always liked Gravity Falls and Phineas and Ferb. Around that point, and I feel like Craig came out earlier than I think, but I basically missed Craig of the Creek. But as far as I know, it seems to be pretty popular. I mean, they gave it a marathon in like a modern day, which they don't do to shows that aren't Teen Titans Go anymore. Craig's getting a spin-off movie. He's allegedly going to be a playable character in the new Warner Brothers big IP Smash Bros. As far as the characters in that game go, that's pretty high regard. I started watching it just like in my free time. I'm like, I like the show, I'll finish it probably. But then I realized that the most recent season actually came out this year. So if I finished it all, I could talk about it. The series I was watching was building up to this big kid war. That's what the whole series was building up to. You'll know what I mean if you've seen it, and if you haven't, I promise it makes sense. That's what the entire show has been building up to, and then the big multi-part finale happened. And then it kept going, and I realized all the episodes that came out in 2022 happened after the big finale. What I thought was the big finale. It's consistently a good show, and it's not like every episode is like, oh, this one's filler. They just make good episodes, and I'm sure the episodes I haven't watched, spoilers, I didn't watch the ones this year. That's the whole point I'm getting at. I'm sure they're good episodes, but after finishing the big plot, I kind of need like a breather. Like, I'm burnt out of the show. I don't know where they could go from here. I will finish it soon because, you know, it's still a good show. And they're going to start coming out at a weekly point, and that's when I want to get into it because that's what I did with all the other shows. It seems that I'm getting into shows around when they're ending, but this is season 4, and it's getting a whole nother season, so strap in. Everything else is ending, so I need to latch on to something. But yeah, that's just me explaining that I watched all the show except for the episodes that came out this year, so that's real convenient. I will say my review of the show is that it's deeply nostalgic for all kids everywhere. Like, it doesn't matter what era you were a kid in, I think you could relate to something in this show. When I first started watching it, like I tried the first time, I didn't really get into it. I'm like, I wasn't that much of like an outdoor kid. And I just like premise-wise, I'm like, I can't relate. But then the ones I saw on the plane was Craig hanging out with like his baby sister, and I'm like, oh my god, that's like almost exactly what we did. That's our dynamic. Any person who was a kid, so every single person can relate to this. We are all Craig of the Creek. Good show. I can't believe I didn't watch it for this long. I should probably watch more animated shows, but if your only experience with me is this video, then you would probably think the opposite, that I watch too many animated shows. I liked doing this. I liked consuming all this stuff. This wasn't even initially a video idea. I just wanted to do it, and I'm glad I did. I will continue to do it the other half of the year, and hopefully the rest of my life. I'm just gonna become a consumer. I don't care. I'm gonna give them all money. It's fun to look forward to something, even if it's weekly. It keeps my heart beating. Why stop at TV and movies? Let's keep it going. Pokemon Legends Arceus. This is the Pokemon game I always envisioned happening. It's the best Pokemon game in a long time. I wish you could pet the Pokemon. Elden Ring. I truly believe this game is meant to be played for hours of you sitting and just walking around trying to be like, where is everything, and dying constantly. It's a good game for that. Terrible. I do not recommend streaming it. Do not stream it. Your chat will be very annoying. WWE 2K22. A step in the right direction. It's not perfect yet, but every game gets a little bit better. I mean, the previous game was a huge step down, so we, 3 steps back, 1 step forward. I like the PNGs. GTA 5 expanded and enhanced. Stay tuned. Kirby and The Forgotten Land. Like every Kirby game, it's got some pretty generic level design with fantastic boss fights. That's all I have to say about it. I hope they stay. I hope this isn't a one-off. I hope they keep doing 3D Kirby games, or just DLC for this one. Lego Star Wars, The Skywalker Saga. They wanted to make this combat system more in-depth, so instead of just bashing buttons, they made it quick-time events, which, surprise, surprise, doesn't make it more in-depth. It just makes you hitting buttons. I like all the attention to detail in the game. I like the Robot Chicken references. I like Max Rebo. I wish it wasn't annoying to play. Nintendo Switch Sports. It's Wii Sports with less games and soccer now. The soccer makes it worth it. Fall Guys multi-platform. This is a game changer. I have been a Fall Guys fan ever since the day it was released, but the one thing is that I always had to force myself to get on the computer to play it. Now that I can play it on my Switch, I'm gonna play it every day. I'm never gonna put the game down. It's free to play. Just get the game. Even if it takes up space, I don't care. It's fantastic. It's everything I've ever wanted in a video game. It's a game changer. It's the future. Game of the Year 2022. But why stop there? At games, shows, and movies, what if I review internet content? Mandela Catalog Volume 3. The production value is getting much better. I like it. I'm invested. Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared TV show announcement. I'm excited. I've been excited for this forever. I did watch the leaks from like years ago, so as long as they don't repeat the first episode, I mean, I'm still gonna be excited regardless. I can't wait to see these characters come back. Aqua, Donk, Sidepiece. Why would you do this? Well, I've officially reviewed everything that's come out in 2022. I did not miss a single thing. And I'm content. I saw some things that I love now that I never would have watched previously. I saw some bad stuff, but still, I got some stuff that I've always wanted to watch and I'm finally able to force myself to do it. I'll admit that maybe I missed a couple things, and even the stuff that didn't come out this year. If you have any recommendations, leave them down below. I know this is like a fake engagement trap, but I will legitimately read it because I want to know what you guys think. They're like, oh, this guy would like Glup Shido. And I'm like, yeah, I probably do. Don't recommend me an anime. I'm gonna try and watch Death Note. I watched Bebop. You'll notice that there's no anime on this list. I did catch a little Spy X Family with my roommates and I hated it. So try not to recommend me anime. If you do, I will watch it and I will tell you how much it fucking sucks. This is too mean, I think. But that's not my fault. It's the outside guy. He's not watching enough stuff, okay? He needs to... I'm sure he's fine. I don't need to worry about it, right? I'm content. I'm happy to just stay here, make silly little videos for the little men in my computer, and I don't have to watch any more Star Wars shows this year. God damn, I hate the volume. Can you imagine not having a whole landscape like this one? Like it's just a fake... No, I've done this bit before, like, oh, it's a green screen, but no, this was real. I built all of this. Where did it go?